a ethical standpoint, from a moral standpoint, I believe personally that it's wrong. From a legal standpoint, there are regulations that allow it.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Doug Defends, the show where a real lawyer talks about fake stuff. I am Billy Business, and to my right, the man whose hair defied gravity. It literally flew.
That's fantastic. I love everything about that. My hair is defying gravity. It's unlimited. It's unlimited.
Doug Ridley.
Yes. It's so shinified, and it's fantastic. And let's talk about my my jacket
it looks very snazzy.
I have a story about the jacket. So the jacket of course there's a story. Of course there's a story. Yeah. So my son went to see Silk Sonic with his girlfriend, and wanted just in Vegas, like VIP and all that kind of stuff, and wanted like just a super cool smooth jacket. Sure. Well, and then when he moved out, I found it like at the bottom of a hamper somewhere or whatever. I'm like, there will be a reason to wear this jacket. As it turns out,
when you decide you want to be the Riddler, and you're just like, you know what, I'm done with the law.
Maybe,
or
if I'm filming a Wicked episode.
I mean, you look like the MGM Grand came to life as a person.
Yeah,
so.
Which is what I was going for.
Perfect.
All right.
That's a perfect time. MGM Grand. Wizard of Oz. Today we are talking Wicked.
Yes.
The 2024 Wicked Part 1, I guess, as we saw.
I'm glad that you clarified that, because they might not have been able to tell from the set.
Yeah, there's. I'm not sure if you guys knew that's what we're talking about. The musical starring Ariana Grande, Cynthia Erivo, Jeff Goldblum, and Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah.
And Bowen Yang, who's one of my favorite SNL cast members. So this obviously was a huge Broadway smash. Idina Menzel, or as you may know her, Gadel Azim from from John Travolta fame. I obviously knew about the musical, but I never watched it, saw it, listened to the music or anything before watching this. Were you a fan?
Well, we did. My family went to go see it, and we all universally hated it.
Wow, really?
We saw it at Pantages and just had the bad luck of seeing it on a bad night. And just universally in my family, this was the musical that the Ridleys did not like, and we would make fun of Wicked like all the time, and make fun of the cast that underperformed that night on a regular basis. So I mean, if we ever wanted like low-hanging fruit jokes in our family, we're like, oh, are you feeling Wicked? And we would do that like all the time. And then the first person in the Ridley family to see the movie was my son Connor, and he said, "Oh my gosh, you have to pause and go and see this movie, because it's beautiful. The practical effects in it are absolutely amazing, and then on top of it, Cynthia Erivo and Ariana Grande. I mean, and I'm not the right demographic for Ariana Grande. Like I'm not overly familiar.
I don't know if I agree with that.
Okay.
I think you're right up her alley. I think she is singing directly to you every time.
I'm not. I mean, I obviously know who Ariana Grande is, but I'm not familiar with her music. Sure. I mean, generally I am, and I'm sure if she played at the Super Bowl, I would recognize half the songs or something. Right. But having said that, I was blown away by this movie, and by the movie version of Wicked, and super inspired by it, and really, really loved it.
So the first time I saw this, are you ready for my humble brag?
I want to hear it.
I'm in the Producers Guild. So I saw a screener. They send a screener.
Oh, wow.
So I feel a little bad about this, but the first time I watched it was at home, because I was like, I'm not going out to the theater. It's right here. I'll watch it right here.
And it's Wicked. I mean, come on.
when you watch something at home and you have kids, you don't watch a movie. Every movie becomes a mini series, right? You watch it over chunks. And I will say, after we finished it, we got to about where they get to Oz, and we stopped for the night. And I was just like, I'm just not feeling this at all.
Oh, wow.
The second half, I was like, okay, the second half really picked up when we watched it.
Right.
But then my daughter got really into it.
Of course she did.
We put it on over and over, and it just started wearing me down to the point where it's okay to change your mind, internet. You're allowed to change your mind. Over time, I just like you, I appreciate it. It was like what the director John Chu was able to do. And you look at everything, and especially these days and age, and you're like, I can tell someone built that.
Yes.
That is a place where they were standing.
Yes.
You know,
and the attention to detail and the love that is put into this.
Right.
You can just see it. John Chu did an amazing job.
It's pretty infectious, right?
Yeah.
Like, and so it is one of those things where it grew on me to now where like I'm very much looking forward to Wicked for Good.
Yes.
So we are not a movie review show, though.
Yes.
That was our quick thoughts. But
Quick
we
thoughts.
are a legal show, and I was talking to you. I texted this to you earlier. If you're watching our show week to week, or if you're kind of going chronological, we inadvertently made the perfect little Doug Defense trilogy. Andor was a very serious episode where we talked about very real world serious issues going on in our world today. Followed it up with maybe the most fantastical Looney Tunes episode with pro wrestling.
Yes.
And today is kind of split the difference, right?
Yeah.
We're in a very fantastical setting, and yet somehow there are some very real world things that creep in here.
Yeah.
I think it's the perfect Goldilocks version of the last two episodes.
Yeah. It's like you popularified it in a way that made it really. I'm going to try to do as many wicked Aussian shiz.
Of all your
phrases.
Things, that was kind of horse shiz.
Yeah. Well, I am enthusiastic to try to increase my Aussian.
Well, let's jump right in. I say, why wait to the end of the show? Let's get into like the real meat of what this is about right now. So if you haven't seen Wicked, first of all, you should know that it is one very big story that they broke into two movies.
Yes.
So essentially it's like if you were to go see the play, the first movie is like up until the intermission.
Yeah.
And then the second movie will be the back half.
We've had like a year of intermission now.
Right.
You could have been eating a lot of popcorn.
You probably could have watched this first movie 100 times like we did. So what happens in this one is it's basically a retelling of The Wizard of Oz, but from the point of view of Elphaba, who we know as the Wicked Witch of the West, and how she met Glinda, and how they met the wizard, and how she became known as
Excuse
the
me,
Wicked
that
Witch
was
of the West.
Galinda.
Let's not confuse people. I'm sorry. Of all the things, that was the one I was like, that's dumb. That's real dumb. That's real dumb.
It is, but it's character development.
Okay, fine. Let's throw out my first legal question then. Can you legally change your name that easy? Just being like, well, everyone calls me the wrong name. I might as well just go legally by this one.
Well, according to Aussian Legal Code Section 68426, it does give somebody the ability to change their name from Lily to Billy if they really wanted to.
Clearly, Doug has never seen our show before. I'll explain it to him and to you. A lot of times we have to use real world law and apply it to fantastical places, or else is a very short show.
I was legal fine from the Aussian perspective rather than from California law.
I'm just curious, is it really like... Obviously, you have to go to somewhere.
Yeah, if you want to change your name, you need to go to the county and change your name legally and get it changed through the courts, and that's how you need to do that.
Is it usually they're like, fine, whatever, or there are times where they're like, there's absolutely no way we're letting you.
Well, I think it depends on what you're going to do. You know,
okay,
if you wanted to change, if you wanted to, instead of being Billy Business, you wanted to be, Billy Butthead, the third, twice removed.
Who are the first two buttheads?
I don't know. But I mean, if you were going to change it to something like that, I think the court would probably want to have a longer conversation with you about the lifelong decisions you're about to make.
to bring back the wrestling thing, the guy who was Ultimate Warrior changed his name legally to Warrior, I think, to keep some copyrights and stuff, and they let it go. You know,
Yeah,
let
well,
it through.
in something like that, I think you get a little away with a little better.
Yeah.
But if it's crass, if
Sure.
it's inappropriate, if
Yeah.
it's those sorts of things,
Right.
then the courts are going to look at it twice. There's still some free speech rights involved. So I mean, if you really wanted to be Billy Butthead, they could potentially allow that to happen. But
Head. We're moving on from this. This is the least important thing we're going to talk about today. So, okay, the main thing that happens is that Elphaba, we find that she kind of has this magic, this power that no one else has, which is very attractive to the wizard. She goes, and her and Glinda go to the wizard, and we find out, now we as viewers know this from The Wizard of Oz, but they as characters find out that the wizard is just some guy.
Right.
He's just some guy, and the head and everything is all...
I mean, all the wonderful things he does are actually nothing. It's just a big joke.
This takes it a little bit further, though, because Elphaba realizes that he has zero power and that he is basically using intimidation to keep people in line, essentially, and he wants Elphaba to use her real magic to do his bidding, essentially.
Yes.
And once she does that, she's like, I want nothing to do with you, and I'm going to tell everybody who you really are. And he goes, him and Professor Morrible, who's the one that kind of found her at the university, go on this campaign of she's a wicked witch, she's a traitor, she's an enemy, you need to find her. So let's start with let's just talk about defamation.
Yeah.
I feel like you see this a lot where people, especially like politicians, threaten, well, that's defamation and I'm going to take you to court. So can you explain a little bit what defamation is, what you need to do or say? And then I also feel like people have the wrong impression of slander and libel.
Yes, and they do. And we have people who call the law firm all the time and say, I want to sue somebody for defamation because they said something bad about me on the internets.
Yeah.
And those things can be horrible. And we've seen, and as we see in Wicked, it can get out of control really quickly. All of a sudden, it can completely and forever irreparably damage someone's reputation. But there are levels. For a private citizen, something that is told that is a lie about someone that harms them in some way is where we start with defamation.
Okay.
Libel is written down. Slander is spoken. So if you...
Is it sad that I knew that from the 2002 Spider-Man movie?
It's slander.
It is not. I resent that. Slander is spoken. In print, it's libel.
Where Jonah Jameson's
Yeah.
like, in print it's libel, you know?
Yeah. Well, no, because that's okay. I have a lot of people whose legal knowledge is derived from the movies that they watch,
Sure.
which why I cringe when it's wrong.
Which is why we do this show, though.
Exactly.
Is that the record
But that is correct.
Okay.
And then though there's a different level for people that are considered public figures,
Okay.
versus someone who is just a general Joe citizen.
Sure.
So if a person is not a public figure,
Yeah.
and someone lies about them, the harm, the level of damage that's required in order to do anything is less.
Right.
A public figure, you have to be able to show and prove that it's an intentional lie to intentionally harm them, where negligent harm can apply to a normal private citizen.
Let me ask you this, because I see this a lot on. I know the stakes are a lot lower than Wicked, but this might be helpful for somebody. I see this a lot on like Yelp and Nextdoor, where someone's like, I hired a contractor, they're thieves.
Yeah.
They took my money, I got nothing. When in reality, the situation is probably like, you hired a bad contractor, they did a bad job, you paid them. So if I'm that contractor, is that defamation? Because it could hurt it does hurt business if it's a Yelp review, right?
Right. And there's an element of that where you have to prove that it's false, right? And then how much can you prove that it's false? And then what are the damages to you?
Yeah.
And we've talked about this on a few episodes.
Sure.
Someone can have a legal cause of action. They teach that in law school that, intentional infliction of emotional distress is a thing, except you don't ever see it, hardly ever, in the courts. Defamation is a thing. And there are times where and there have been very prominent, famous cases in real world that have been able to establish that, people who lost, big contracts, people who lost credibility and all of those things. But the reality is, for most of us, it is an irritating lie that makes us upset and angry. And there's almost nothing to be done about it. I mean, in the real world,
Right.
yes, you could file a lawsuit, and yes, you can pay a lawyer thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to sue you for calling me a butthead on, our comments or something like that.
A thief, right? They stole my money, but they did. So let's ratchet this up a notch.
Yeah.
Then, though, we're talking about defamation, but what about just like they're accusing her of crimes that we know as an audience she did not commit. And what does the law say about, and I'm sure it's hard to prove a lot of times, but like false accusations?
Yeah.
Because I'm sure that's a different category than defamation, right? Or is it hand in hand?
Well, it is when you're dealing with an accusation of a crime. First of all, somebody calls you a thief. That is the easiest level of defamation to prove. I didn't steal anything, and I can prove that, and that is assumed that there's harm.
Sure.
And that's honestly it's strange to say this, but that's one of the easiest levels of defamation to prove. But when we're talking about false accusations, we do see that from time to time. And I have people who I prove their innocence, and they say, all right, now I want to sue the detective that arrested me, and I want to sue the person that accused me, and I want to sue the county and the prosecutor and the judge and all those things. And I tell them, don't do any of those things. Be grateful that you don't have criminal charges and move on with your life.
If you can at that point.
If you can at that point. That's exactly true. I've had cases where a domestic violence victim called 911 from the bathroom begging for help. And when they arrived, they didn't see any marks on her, but they saw her defensive wound claw marks as he was choking her and strangling her, and they arrested her. And they got it completely wrong.
Yeah.
Just absolutely got it backwards, 100%.
Yeah.
It was a false accusation.
Yeah.
But the remedies for things like that, you have to be able to prove that it was intentionally false. And then if you're going to criminally prosecute somebody for a false accusation, you have to be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt, which is the highest legal standard that exists. So we very rarely ever see someone charged with that unless they admit that they made it all up. There have been false accusations of kidnapping, false accusations of sexual assault, where you have somebody who's admitting that they made that up intentionally.
Right.
Then maybe you're going to get somebody to prosecute them for something like that.
Now, I've not seen the Broadway show Wicked, but I'm going to guess the wizard is probably not going to be like, guys, my bad. You know what? She was actually fine.
Yeah, she's not really wicked. I mean, and spoilers. We know some of what happens if we've ever watched The Wizard of Oz.
Right.
We also know some of what happens in Wicked because the opening sequence of this first movie is actually the end of the story.
Sure.
And everything else is flashback. It's Linda remembering how she met Elphaba.
Sure.
And so we know how it ends. We know how it goes. And as it turns out, she is nobody pulls back on the public persona of wickedness.
Right.
And the wizard actually even says, Jeff Goldblum says at some point, there's nothing that brings people together like a common enemy. And we see this. We see this in today's society. If you can point at others or that person, and that person is the villain, well, let's all gather together and defeat the villain. That is a tool that's used in politics and all over in government and everything else.
I was going to save this for the end of the show, but I feel like we're already in this conversation. So I want to ask you, you had just said, telling your client if they're defamation, like you're done, just try to move on with your life. And I said, if you can, I want to talk about a big part of this story is all about the court of public opinion.
Yes.
And as a lawyer, I mean, okay, first of all, if you have a client where, sometimes we hear in the news, like a man was arrested for this, somehow we are trained to think like, well, he's guilty. He did it. He got arrested. He did it. How do you combat that? And if you can get them, like, prove that they're innocent, is there anything legally that you can help with to restore that name? Or is it like, it's too late. You won the legal battle, but I can't help you with, clearing your name. That's two different things.
Well, there are ways of doing it. And it depends on what level we've been able to accomplish that. So there are times where my argument, just so that we can come to an agreement, is, look, whether you believe this or not, you're never going to be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. So dismiss the case. And sometimes I accomplish it by making that argument. Now, it's not necessarily that the prosecutor agrees with me that somebody is innocent. It could just be that they acknowledge that they're never going to be able to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt, and a jury is not going to convict them. So that is a scenario where the prosecutor still thinks they did something bad.
Yeah.
I believe that they're innocent, and we basically come to a middle ground of can't prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. In California, it's Penal Code Section 1385 that is a motion to dismiss a case for failure to prove beyond a reasonable doubt. Then we have some cases that are so lacking in evidence that they're not filed at all. And I have clients that get letters from law enforcement saying that because the case wasn't filed, it may have felt like you were arrested when you were put in handcuffs, tracked into jail, had to post bail, had to go through a change of clothes and all of those super uncomfortable, terrible things.
Yeah.
But legally, because a case wasn't filed, it changes this from an arrest to merely a detention. And those clients can say on a background check, I've never been arrested.
Okay.
You can bet they feel like they were arrested.
Sure,
I mean, they went to jail.
Right.
But it legally turns it from an arrest to merely a detention. And I advise clients all the time, you can say, I've never been arrested. I was just investigated for a crime. And then there's one last level. And there is a motion that we can file for a finding of factual innocence. The burden shifts to the defense completely for something like that.
Right.
And if we're able to establish by proof that not only is this not a case that could be proved beyond a reasonable doubt, but it's a case where my client was factually innocent, wrong person completely, or something along those lines. We filed those motions before.
Yeah.
And that is the way to completely erase a record. It seals the police reports, and it completely restores someone. But again, the burden on that is really high because it's no longer just, well, prove your case. It is now you got to prove that you were
screwed up.
You were not just merely innocent. You were really, really, really innocent.
It's funny because, and I don't know if this is just me, I kind of feel like it's a lot of people, especially in this day and age, but it's like if someone gets arrested for something and the case is dismissed, then my brain just thinks, well, it's like, well, of course, if it was dismissed, nothing happened or they didn't do it. If they goes to trial and they're found not guilty, I just think like, oh, they got away with it, like there's something about case was dismissed or thrown out that like psychologically makes you feel like,
Right.
well, they're innocent. And even if you go to court and it's like, well, they were proven not guilty. It's like, no, you just couldn't prove they were guilty.
Right.
You know?
And it's true.
Yeah.
And while someone can be not guilty and they have the presumption of innocence, doesn't mean they didn't do it.
Right.
No question in my mind that OJ was
Totally.
guilty 100%.
Yeah. Right.
They couldn't prove his case. They got beat. You lowered the standard and got different attorneys involved in civil court. He was found liable. So for me, I understand and acknowledge completely where you're coming from.
Yeah.
Not guilty at the end of a trial seems like they had a really smart lawyer who got them off the hook.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like if it were me in that position, I wouldn't feel vindicated unless the case was thrown out. Even if I was found not guilty, I'd be like, great, my life can go on, but everyone is just looking at me thinking that guy got away with it.
Yeah,
you know?
yeah.
Let's talk about the wizard for a second, because we talked about what he's doing with Elphaba and this propaganda thing, but he also assumed power. I mean, I don't think he was elected. Let's just say for the sake of this conversation, he was elected the head of Oz because he was a powerful wizard.
Right.
But he misrepresented everything about him. So if he's exposed for what he really is, I mean, is there any sort of like what crime? Is that a crime, or is it just like, oh, we didn't know? And he's like, yeah, you should have asked, you know?
Well, it's interesting because the level of his fraud is so big, and we see him achieving arguably the highest political position in the land.
Right.
Not that there's any parallels to today,
None that I can
at
think
all.
of. Yeah.
But we mentioned this in Andor, right? I mean, if it's so big and there's so many atrocities, it's almost like you can hide behind all of them. If he came to you and said, "Hey, I am the most powerful wizard in the land. Will you please give me $1,000 because of that?"
Yeah.
And you gave him $1,000 because he was the highest wizard in the land.
Sure.
And the most powerful wizard in all the land. I'm this close to breaking into some Wizard of Oz songs, and I'm gonna resist just for now at least.
For copyright, if nothing else.
For now,
Let's
at
not get this
least.
video flagged.
But that would be getting money from you by false pretenses. Right? Because he's misrepresenting himself. He's lying to you.
Sure.
And he's getting you to give him money because he's lying to you.
I guess unlike Andor, it's like, unlike Andor, it's like, well, the Emperor really is a Sith Lord. It's not like if you met Palpatine, he'd be like, hey, these are just firecrackers, you know, like don't tell anybody, okay? Like it's
got these Tesla coils, in my sleeves that allow me to shoot lightning.
Everybody acknowledges, maybe not that he's a Sith Lord, but everybody acknowledges Palpatine for what he is, face value, and for the most part, that's all it has to be. With Oz, you have to wonder, like, if everyone knew that it wasn't a floating head and that there was no magic there, I feel like that's a different scenario. Like, now as a people, what could you do at that point?
Well, so in that amazing scene where they summarize the wizard's backstory with Idina Menzel and Kristen Chenoweth and Jonathan Groff, doing their little cameos, which I thought it was super cool. But they talk about how he was acknowledged as the wizard because he could read the book, right? The grimoire.
Yeah.
So if it's because he can read the book and he's faking reading the book, and then he obtains the power because of that, and he gets the governmental position because of that, but he can't read it, and that seems to be the governmental way that he obtains his power, is that they think that he is the prophecy foretold, and then he also, had the good fortune of flying out of the sky somehow.
Let me ask you this. So after Elphaba escapes from his custody, well, I don't know, she's not custody, but you know what I mean.
Yeah,
She gets out of there before things turn bad.
And sings a song.
And Morrible and Oz are both kind of announcing to everybody.
Yes.
She is loose. She is bad. Would you say, because she hasn't technically been arrested yet,
Right.
and there's no trial,
Right.
We can assume maybe he would do a kangaroo court type trial or something. But
Yeah.
would you say the due process was already broken by him the minute that he was like, she's an enemy? If you see her, grab her?
No.
Okay.
I don't, because we see lesser other versions of this all the time. Something bad happens. We want to blame someone. We want to solve the case immediately, and we think it's like a Law and Order episode where, the first 30 minutes are solving the crime, and the last 30 minutes are the entire criminal justice system. Sure, So. We do see press releases all the time. And I have clients ask me, like, this press release put out by the lawful sheriff's department or the lawful district attorney's office, who have the ability to put out their press releases when a case breaks. What can I do about that? Because it's all lies. And the answer is nothing. And unless you can prove that they had zero cause to believe and intentionally lied to the public. Now, that applies in Oz, right? Because we know that Morrible and the Wizard have intentionally lied. At that point, whether it's to recapture her or to give the people a common enemy to unite behind them, whichever reason it is, they are intentionally lying. But in the real world, if I'm lawyerifying in the real world, just to Oz it up. Perfect. In the real world, these press releases go out all the time.
Yeah.
And it's rare for us to have national press releases about crime unless it's a big nationally acknowledged crime. You know, if it's if it's Osama bin Laden, then they're going to announce that, worldwide. But for most of what I deal with here in California, those press releases are hugely damning, and they absolutely color the jury and color everything. I have another case where they've charged my client with murder, and it's not. It's actually vehicular manslaughter, which makes a huge difference. But because everybody comes in with pitchforks and torches and yay, we got the bad guy, it also makes it really hard for the DA's office when they have that amount of political and public and media pressure to get the bad guy.
Okay. So we've talked a lot about kind of Elphaba versus the Wizard. Now, I don't know if this is spoilers or not. So I'm just going to say spoiler alert.
Okay.
But I feel like it's like watching Phantom Menace and being like, spoiler alert, Palpatine's the best.
Right.
Like it's fairly obvious.
I mean, and we see from the original part of the movie as well as from trailers and things like that, Dorothy is coming into the picture here.
So
I don't know if that's where you were going.
I mean, what I was going to say was at the very beginning of the movie, we get Elphaba's origin story where a mysterious man comes in, gives Elphaba's mother an elixir, for reasons I'm not sure why. It's kind of hand waved away,
and we can be vague about that for purposes of this episode, just in case somebody hasn't seen the whole thing.
Sure, but
if you turn on subtitles. on the thing,
that's what I'm saying. Like,
it tells you it's the Wizard singing, and it sounds a lot like Jeff Goldblum.
It is. I was just going to say, like, I don't think it needs to be vague. Like, I'm pretty sure. It's funny because, like, I didn't pick up on his voice the first time, but then the second time I was like,
"What about the 50th time?"
Absolutely, yeah. By the 50th time, there was no doubt in my mind.
Yeah.
So I think it's safe to say that the Wizard is the one that created Elphaba, by drugging her mom. So in essence, like, I mean, we talked about poisoning, but I guess it's just like, I don't know what the effects of this elixir are. So
I mean, and going deep into the effects of the elixir, was it an intoxicant?
Right.
Was it just greenifying and not anything else.
I'm gonna say no on that one only because it's like, well, then why? Like,
Right.
what was the point?
Right.
So I guess like I was thinking about this, and this is really dark. I
Yeah.
apologize ahead of time. This is very dark.
No problem.
But I was thinking about it in my head. I was like, okay, we know the effects of alcohol on fetuses, right?
Right.
And all the problems that can come from a mother that drinks while she's pregnant.
Right.
If that happens, and is the father who maybe gave the alcohol, bought the alcohol, supplied the alcohol to the mother at all liable?
Yes, this does go to a dark place.
Sorry,
but
but
no.
yeah.
But I think it's important to address, and I get that, and it is. Right now, as we sit with only the first part of this movie out, it is unclear exactly what the green is. But let's go through every layer of what you just said.
Sure.
First of all, as far as damage to a fetus, I think there are a lot of people that were created during drinking of alcohol.
Yes, I agree.
Just in general.
but-
So as far as the initiation of the creative
Right,
process, not a whole lot of studies are showing that the introduction of alcohol at that earliest stage is necessarily a problem or a bad. However, the introduction of intoxicants or drugs or things along those lines that can harm a fetus, we generally speaking have not been holding mothers responsible for that in that area. Like there are, I mean, we would sadly see this in the courts where we have somebody with a huge drug problem, huge alcohol problem, and they're 7 months pregnant, and they, you know, they're into the courtroom and everyone is shocked and everyone is concerned, but I haven't seen cases where prosecutors have prosecuted pregnant mothers, expectant mothers,
Sure.
for their bad decisions during pregnancies.
Okay.
Number one. But then rolling it back just a little bit, if someone was drugged or too intoxicated to know what's going on around them, then they can't lawfully give consent for creative activities,
Sure.
for romantic
This is
creative
where I
activities.
feel like you'd have to really sway the jury, because as I watch it, that's why I'm just like, I wish I knew what this elixir was, because it's like, she's already on board. You don't have to like drug her to do something bad. Like, they're already in the process or about to start the process. So it's like, what is it? Viagra for him? Like what is it?
Yeah,
You know?
I mean,
because like
you
if I'm a jury, I would be like, well, I don't think he drugged her to take advantage. Like, I'm not sure what that was. you know?
I mean, let's say that a jury is able to see everything that we see,
Sure.
and we use that as a hypothetical a lot, you know, in our shows. So let's say that the jury gets to see shadowy guy that sounds suspiciously like Jeff Goldblum, and Elphaba's mom who rips off her shawl and is ready to party and excited to see mystery man who's at the door. And if the two of them share a drink and then do some canoodleifying, I think that's the Aussian word for what was happening. Then all of that seems very consensual and very much. I mean, obviously she's cheating on her husband, but you know, it all seems consensual in nature, and I think they intentionally depict it as fun. If it was, in fact, something where, you know, that elixir changed her mental state so significantly,
Right.
you know, we say a lot in our courts. There's a real big difference between somebody getting romantic with someone because they're a little buzzed and a little tipsy versus somebody being so drunk that they don't know what's going on around them. And if somebody is taken advantage of when they're so drunk that they don't know what's going on around them, then that is a serious crime, as serious as if it was force, and is treated very, very, very seriously.
Okay, let's assume a different thing. Let's take canoodleifying out of the equation.
Oh, I love
completely.
that. Yeah.
Just two people hanging out, right?
Right.
Person number one shares recreational drugs with person number two.
Mm-hmm.
Person number two, their mind is altered. Something is altered within them. Can't reverse it. Maybe not death, but something real bad.
Right.
Person number one, are they criminally liable since they were like, hey, you want some of this? And person number two is like, yeah, I want some. Or, I mean, obviously, whatever they had is probably illegal in itself. But that possession seems like it would be different than giving someone something, right?
Agreed.
Okay.
And it is different.
Okay.
And what we see, the best parallel in the real world right now is when people are sharing recreational drugs that is laced with fentanyl and they don't know that.
Sure.
And so we have people having fentanyl overdoses and dying. We have people reacting really, really strongly to fentanyl and having major health problems because of that, short of actually dying. So I think that is the best example. And yes, absolutely, there's criminal prosecution. It depends on the damage, however. If it is, if someone puts something in someone's drink and they're not consenting to what that is, then that goes back to the poisoning element that we've had before, where, we've seen cases where people drop LSD into someone's, vodka tonic and they had no idea that they were taking LSD. Well, that's a poisoning. Even if they were voluntarily drinking a vodka tonic, the addition of LSD against their will is something that will be prosecuted as a poisoning.
So another thing that the wizard does, and again, this is another kind of big part of the movie, which is the animals in Oz are all sentient, talking beings, but they're kind of discovering over time that a lot of them are not talking anymore. That there's definitely some testing and stuff going on with the animals. So I want to ask, we test on animals all the time. I'm pretty sure the medicines and shampoos and maybe not for you, but at least for me that I use. So legally, what is is it different per state? Is it different per country? What is the legal kind of situation around animal testing? Let's start there.
If we just start with animal testing, there are a lot of regulations about it. The idea is that supposedly the government regulates to try to make it as humane as possible. I call bullshit on all of that. Yeah. And, a lot of people have acknowledged that testing on animals is horrible and cruel and inhumane, and I agree with that. And I wish that we had zero testing on animals, but it is lawful, and there are limits to what you can do. It's supposed to be humane, but how can you? And this is the argument against animal testing. How can you make it humane if you're testing to see whether the shampoo burns their eyes or not?
Right.
Because you're wanting to make sure that it doesn't burn a human's eyes, but if you're testing to make sure, I can't believe every sample was burn free, and so you're burning an animal's eyes, and that's not right, and that's not okay, and that's not cool. So from a ethical standpoint, from a moral standpoint, I believe personally that it's wrong and we shouldn't be doing animal testing. From a legal standpoint, there are regulations that allow it.
It's usually what, like mice, rats?
Yeah,
bunnies?
and they'll go up a little more than that sometimes. I honestly don't know where our line is as far as which animals are prohibited from animal testing.
The reason I brought it up was because it seems like you pick the ones that are what we deem to not be kind of like sentient,
right,
intelligent, or
Right.
Obviously, if it can sense that it needs food and finds it, it's got some level of intelligence.
Right.
But I think there's the whole MO of Oz is basically like, I've got to suppress their ability to speak, right?
Right.
So let's assume that it's people for a second, right? In the law, if I cut your finger off, obviously that's a crime.
Yes, it is. Don't do that. I for sure don't cut somebody's finger off.
But they still have a hand.
Yes.
They still have freedom of speech.
Yes.
If I cut your tongue off, you can't talk anymore.
Right.
So legally, what's the legal difference between cutting your finger off and cutting your tongue off?
Wow, that is a great question that I didn't think we were going to go to in today's Wicked episode. But the difference between is a level of injury. And so we punish crimes differently and charge crimes differently based upon the level of injury. If I were to, punch you in the arm, that's a pretty low level of injury, even though I'm super strong.
Very.
If I, take a razor blade out of my pocket and cut your arm, then that's going to be more serious. And if I cut off your arm or your finger, now we're talking about, assault with a deadly weapon, with force likely to create great bodily injury that causes great bodily injury, and you're looking at a lot of prison time for something like that. And then if we go to the level of damaging somebody's face, we unpopularly talked about this in detail about ear piercings in our Freaky Friday episode.
Yeah.
People went all nutso with us on that, but no offense, nutso people. But if you're dealing with tongue cutting off, that's going to be there's not a specific crime that deals with tonguification defying or whatever.
Detonguification.
But the courts are going to acknowledge, wow, that is not now just losing a pinky or losing a big toe.
Right.
That is, removing a person's ability to speak, and that's going to be punished way harder than even cutting off somebody's pinky.
I mean, I guess that's the reason I brought it up, was because that's essentially what Oz is doing. He's not cutting their tongues out, but he's chemically altering them in a way where or magically, whatever it is, that they cannot speak anymore.
Right.
And they are becoming, and then also we see, this was kind of a weird part of the movie. I'll save my critical analysis, but just look at what happens where the monkey, he's like, oh, he really wants wings. He really wants to fly. And then they magically do it. And then Elphaba's like, I don't think he likes this.
Right.
Can we turn this off?
Right.
In my head, I just was like, well, if you think it hurts him coming out, do you think it's going to feel great going back in? Maybe
just leave it now.
Yeah, maybe just walk away. Just walk away.
Yeah.
But I guess in that instance, even though thought she was helping, like, is Elphaba just I mean, she's not taking away the monkey's ability to communicate or anything. She's just putting him through a lot of pain. But like, is she basically as culpable as Oz is for the stuff he's doing to animals in that moment?
Right. No, and I would say no. I think she has a good faith belief that this was something that was going to be a positive experience, and that this was going to give this monkey its biggest wish, its biggest dream, it's just to fly. He's always looking at the birds. I think Elphaba maybe could have done a little better of a job following up. Like, okay, you've seen him looking up the sky at birds. Did you ask if he wants some wings?
That was my critical part. Is like, I don't know how the musical is, but she agrees to that very quickly.
Very
like,
quickly.
Why not?
Oh, for sure.
Why wouldn't a monkey fly?
You spent so much time thinking about whether you could. You didn't ask if you should.
But then the immediate, I don't think this is going very well.
Which is so funny because Jeff Goldblum in his other role, would have definitely criticized the genetic modifications in magic, but I would say that it's very clear that Elphaba believes that she is granting someone this beautiful, wonderful gift.
Right.
And then also in the midst of it all, she's super excited to be able to do something like this. So
Right.
she's discovering a power on top of that.
I feel like, and look, I know I have the same education as you.
Of course, yes.
I feel like if I was a lawyer, I'd maybe leave that part out. Like, but she was really excited that she could do something cool. I'd be like, well, yeah, her cool thing ended up hurting my client. So I would maybe leave that out. Right?
I mean, I would.
Yeah.
But also, if I'm developing the defense of Elphaba,
Okay.
for creating monkey wings,
Yeah.
there is an element of newness in this, right? Where somebody who's been driving a car for 50 years knows how to drive a car pretty darn well, right? A teenager who's just learned how to drive a car, who gets into an accident, we're going to be a little bit more forgiving of a teenager being in an accident than somebody who's 50 years old or 60 years old who is driving like a maniac up and down the freeway. They should know better.
Let me ask you this, because there has to be a level of consent from the monkey, right?
Right.
But let me ask you about this nuance of consent. If I said, man, my biggest wish is that I wish I could fly, and you said, I could make you fly. You really want to fly? And I'd be like, well, yeah, I really do want to fly.
Right.
I didn't consent to you like being like, hold on, and then you just ripped my back open and put wings on. I didn't consent to that.
No.
I my consent it wasn't even consent. It was just like reiterating like,
right.
Yes,
right.
I do want to fly.
I mean, I get the sense, Elphaba should have known with the glowing wings that were on the book that maybe there might be some wings involved.
Yeah.
But
what did she think was if I'm the prosecutor, I'd be like, what did you think was going to happen when you did that?
We see a lot of metamorphosis in a lot of stories,
Sure.
right? I mean, in X-Men we see Angel, popping out his
Right.
wings,
Yeah.
but it could have been she was thinking it was going to be granting him a broomstick, like what happened to him, or what happened to her, right?
Yeah.
I mean, that was the other thing, just that she did the same spell on herself, but it gave her a broom, which was not painful.
That monkey's like, the f***, man.
Like, I could have just had a broom instead of having to go through all that. I'm shedding feathers all over Oz, and I could have just had a broomstick. Oh my gosh.
Okay.
I actually just realized that I forgot our broomstick for the set. We don't have enough Wicked stuff here.
Yeah, I wish we would have decorated for this one.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, let's talk about, we're kind of getting towards the end here, but there's one character we haven't talked about. And this is one where, now normally you say, well, it's not against the law to not help somebody.
Right.
But let's talk about Glinda, because I feel like at a certain point.
Now, that's Galinda.
No, at this point, she's Glinda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I just wanted to be able to
interrupt
you.
Pedantic and
and actually you.
No, you're really wearing that wizard thing, aren't you?
I am.
Okay, so Glinda comes with her to Oz. She sees everything that Elphaba does, and she's kind of like, "Hey, you're gonna blow it if you tell everybody. Maybe you should just go back, say you're sorry, and let's be done with this.
You can make this right," she says. You can still make this right. Go and apologize. You can still make this right.
So I guess at what point do you shift from a moral sense of like, well, you just have no principles, versus legal, like, well, now you're kind of an accomplice to this. If you're taking the wizard side in this, then you are part of it too.
Right. And they talk about this, and they talk about, her looking out for herself, and, the beginning of Defying Gravity is those lyrics. And for her, it seems like she's not necessarily saying don't care about the plight of the animals,
Right.
as much as she's saying, hey, let's see if we can work within the system to make this right. And we hear people talking about that, right?
Sure.
Working within the system to try to make it right.
I would argue that's kind of why our government's shut down right now, is because half of the Democratic Party thinks that's the way to go, and the other half is Elphaba,
Yeah, and wanting to call it out for what it is.
Yeah.
And it is super challenging to be in this position where where do you have the duty to stand up and protest and complain? Do you have the right to try to smooth things over and acquiesce? And that's an issue that I struggle with all the time. We talked about this in Andor, and this is the reason why this episode is kind of a cool balance between these two. I mean, the wrestlifying of an episode combined with when do you have an obligation to stand up and say no more? Funny enough, I thought we handled that really, really well in our Andor episode. And there were some people who said, just being hopeful isn't enough. You have to stand up and fight for things. And they're not wrong. It's not enough just to say, wow, I wish the animals were being treated fairly and not grabbed by the horns and thrown in a cage and all of these things. Elphaba believes that it is a moral responsibility to do this. I don't know that what Glinda did in that moment is necessarily crossing the line into a conspirator kind of a position. I don't believe that Glinda's position was not only let's try to stay here where it's cool and we're going to be popular, but also let's make sure that we help him damage monkeys. That doesn't seem to be where her heart is in that moment. So I would say in defending Glinda that you can defend Glinda by saying it wasn't that she was wanting to be involved with the crimes and the bad stuff with Oz or with the wizard and Morrible.
I'm sure there are people here that are screaming. I'm telling you, I don't know how this version of the story ends. So part 2 could very much address, and probably will address, Glinda's state of mind and what she's thinking about everything. But if I'm a prosecutor and I'm just looking at part 1 and what I saw,
right. If you pause it right there, and that's all the evidence you have,
and she's hugging, she kind of reluctantly, but then does grab Morrible at the end. Like, to me, that kind of felt like, well, I made my choice. You know?
And for sure, while Elphaba still cares for Glinda at the end, and again, I'm really trying to just limit it to as we end with part 1, she cares for her, she cries for her, she still loves her, still wants to be friends with her.
Right.
But how do you reconcile Glinda's big emotional hug with Morrible and staying behind and not going off and defying gravity with Elphaba?
That's what I'm saying. Like, if at the end of all of this, the wizard and Morrible have to answer for their crimes, like, I don't know if I'm just looking at that, if I let Glinda walk away, like, this is such a stretch, but like, when they did the trials of Nuremberg, I was following orders was not an accepted response.
Agreed. And it still is not.
Right.
And so, a prosecutor would have to look at what was Glinda's knowledge, level of involvement, and everything else.
Right.
We don't prosecute people for standing by and not acting. Mm-hmm. We don't do that. We do prosecute people for actively contributing, and so or agreeing and being a part of it. Now, I believe that we will both have very, very different answers. After this next weekend when we see part 2 and we see how this completely fleshes out. And to be real honest, I'm capping it there. My memory of part 2 was after a big glass of wine at the Pantages because I could not believe that I was watching Wicked, and so I don't remember a whole lot about how part 2 ends, and I've intentionally not refreshed my memory on that.
Yeah.
I want to enjoy John Chu's version of part 2 of this movie and to see it how he envisioned it, and I'm looking forward to that.
All right, let's get into some fan questions now. And the first is probably your biggest fan, because your daughter, who designed our logo, she texted me last night.
Oh, my goodness.
I didn't tell my dad, but I have a 2-part question.
Okay.
All right, you ready for part 1?
I am so ready.
Reading the text.
Okay.
Who do you think has more potential as a doomed relationship, Glinda and Elphaba or Magneto and Charles?
Oh, my God, Gabby.
I mean, not a legal question, but clearly this is something you guys have discussed.
Yeah. Gabby ships Magneto and Charles Xavier and sends me memes on the regular that they're shipped.
Okay.
They have been shipified.
Okay.
I would say of the two, just based upon Wizard of Oz, that Elphaba and Glinda have the more doomed relationship.
Having not seen part 2, I don't know if I don't know if it's all like, am I going to go back and watch Wizard of Oz and be like, oh, she's just acting like she doesn't care about the way, I don't know.
Right. It could be.
I'm not going to weigh in. So her second part of her question is, how many counts of terrorism, murder, or whatever kind of trouble is Madame Morrible going to get charged with? And I want to follow this up from a question from Jamie.
Yeah.
Would Madame Morrible face additional charges since she was a teacher? And would Shiz, the Shiz University, if they covered it up, could they be held liable that they are harboring kind of this,
Yeah. Well, we didn't get into like some of the employment law issues with, firing all of the special class of people,
right?
The animals.
Yeah.
We don't know in in Oz if they are a protected class. That would be what would be the real legifying analysis in the real world. But if we look at the level of horrible that Morrible is, and all of the different crimes that she's involved with basically destroying an entire ability for the entire class of people, for an entire class of citizens, and removing their personhood. That's what she's doing.
Yeah.
So every single one of those affected citizens, and I'm calling them that intentionally rather than calling them animals, because they absolutely have sentience in this world.
Right.
So every single one of those people would have their own cause of action, their own claim, would be a victim of the crime that Morrible and the Wizard are committing upon them.
Yeah.
Then when you realize that someone who is involved with a big crime is actually a public figure.
Yeah.
Right? So are there examples in the real world where someone who is the head of a university or some larger public figure or in education commits horrible, awful, terrible crimes? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. And we have examples of teachers that are committing crimes and all of that. Then what is Shiz's role in that? If a high-standing dean at Harvard was involved with hate crimes, you would do the analysis by, first of all, prosecuting that dean, right? And then, is Harvard liable? Well, the question about whether Harvard would be liable for that comes with, was he acting in his role as dean as he worked on committing these crimes? To apply that to Morrible and Shiz, was Morrible using her position at Shiz in order to further advance her her mission to eliminate the personhood of the animals. That was a big long sentence and a big long hypothetical, but I would say yes. I mean, that's the first example that we see. That's when this movie turns.
Right.
Is when they pull the professor, voiced by Peter Dinklage, which I didn't know until I was looking at this, pulled him out of the classroom, and then that's where things turned.
I called him Peter Goatledge last night because I couldn't remember what the professor's name was. It's like, Peter Goatledge.
Peter Goatledge. Sure. Absolutely.
Okay, I really like this question. This one is from Sienna, and it's kind of an outside the box thing, but
I love him.
Elphaba try to escape in his hot air balloon, right?
Right.
If the wizard's hot air balloon was faulty, could Elphaba have sued for product liability? If I steal someone's car and it it malfunctions and I hit a pole, is there any chance?
No. No. Steal a better car next time is the answer. Don't steal the one with the fender that's half fallen off, and she wouldn't have standing to even sue the balloon manufacturer. But it wasn't that the balloon was faulty. It popped and exploded and caught the tower on fire because they closed the roof. That was all it was.
I don't know. I think that's a big fault of a balloon if it pops.
Well, if you put a bunch of claws into a balloon, it's likely to pop, is my response to Sienna.
This one is from Rachel.
Oh, Rachel!
I can't not do that.
I know.
Could Elphaba sue the government for discrimination based on skin color, even if it's green?
Yeah, I love this question, and this is it gets a little bit more serious. Yes, I would say yes. We doing kind of a more serious analysis of this. Elphaba's mom seemed to be African. Not American and probably not African, but she seemed to be of color.
Sure.
Right. And so, using our laws, she would be in a protected class. And if she was in a protected class, her daughter would be in a protected class. And green or not green, she would be protected. So there would be an assumption that because she's in a protected class, that what happens to her would be subject to that higher level of review for discrimination for other sorts of things.
All right. This is another interesting one. Going back to our Glinda conversation from Alan, would the wizard's staff, not, a staff,
right,
but the administration of
right,
the wizard be protected by whistleblower laws if any of them exposed his secret?
Absolutely.
Well, I don't know if any of them besides Elphaba, Morrible, and Glinda know.
Yeah, because
sorry, not to cut you off, but
yeah,
that was another thing that it didn't strike me until just this last viewing, but he, when they first go, he's the big head, right? Then they come out and he comes out, he's like, oh, no, this is actually me, right?
Right.
Morrible, and everyone knows. Then soldiers come in and he goes back behind the head to tell them.
I noticed that.
But then at the end, when she's doing her big solo and flies off, he walks back out again, just as him. Everyone was like, who the hell's that guy?
Well, he didn't want to miss the song.
I get it.
It's the best thing ever.
It's very unclear who knows who. Because if I'd be like, get that strange guy that's standing
right.
there.
Who's the guy with the cool suit?
Yeah. So I don't know if this is like a Ra's al Ghul thing where they think he's like the Oz's administrator,
maybe
executive assistant.
What if he was?
I mean, that's a cool plot thread that they should have put in. But
my gosh.
I digress. I don't know how many people know the secret, but let's assume at least there's an inner circle that knows, right?
And if the secret is that he's not a big head, I'm not as concerned about that. If the secret that they know is that he can't read the book,
which I feel like maybe only Morrible knows.
Which I think that. But let's say one of the assistant staff.
Now that monkey found out because he was in the room.
Right.
He probably told all the other monkeys.
He should have told all the other monkeys.
Can a monkey be a whistleblower? The people need to know.
And the answer is yes. 100%. Whistleblower, I would protect the monkey from anything by whistleblower statutes for sure.
All right, this is the last question from Kendra. This is interesting. If Elphaba levitates a mob to save herself, would you consider that justified defense or excessive force?
Ooh,
Because she's not just getting herself out of there.
right.
She's got the force, right?
Right.
She force pushes.
Right. I would say that if they are attacking her, it's lawful self-defense.
Okay.
If she was lighting them all on fire, then yeah, probably not. But if she's just pushing them out of the way, then I think we're all right.
She also can't super control it very well.
No, she can't. Not
Not
yet.
until the very end.
Yeah.
I feel like, she starts to get a handle on it.
Yeah. And then it's just spectacular.
It's every time I see the ending, like the last 10 minutes of this movie, it's like goosebumps. Right?
Yeah, for me, it was really unusual for me to be inspired by a character who is the Wicked Witch of the West, who is a green-skinned witch of the West, and all of a sudden, like I think there was something specifically about the way John Chu shot that as she was falling, and with the image of her as a kid on the inside, and I'm thinking about myself as a kid, and
Right.
and the song is beautiful and has always been beautiful, but there was something about the way that was produced and the way that they came in close on her face. It inspired me. And watching it again for the show, the only other movie that has really done that for me since Wicked is Superman.
Yeah.
With the idea of you can be hopeful and you can be human and you can make mistakes, but you can do anything. And that was my biggest surprise coming out of Wicked, was that I was inspired to be the Wicked Witch.
Well, plus I know who you are as a person, and I know what the stereotype of a defense attorney is, and I know who you are as a defense attorney, and I almost feel like Wicked is the perfect kind of like Doug story in terms of like everyone has a story.
Yeah.
And sometimes, the people that you think are bad, you just don't know their whole story.
Right.
And I'm going to show you the whole picture, because it might not be what you think. Like, this seems like the defense attorney's favorite movie, because
and there's a reason why I chose green. I mean, I look better in it than pink, but there's something so powerful about. You know what? No, and I'm not going to go just light. I'm going big. I'm not going to listen to your advice. I'm going to try to fly. I'm going to defy gravity. I'm unlimited. And that spoke to me and just hit me in a great way. And I'm going to be singing that song in my head nonstop, and it's on my playlist now. And yeah, so even though we made fun of the fact that this looks like Wicked exploded, you and I are
we're
both,
gonna wear all this stuff.
We are that level of Wicked fans.
All right, so this is going to be the hard part for you. This is the speed round where I really want you to think as a defense attorney.
I always love it when you spit it up like that, because you're like, don't just respond. Really
sometimes
think.
You're like, I don't like him, no. But I want you to really dig into like, not even like, would you take the case in terms of like Doug? Maybe the question should be like, if you are their defense attorney, do you have a case?
Okay.
That might be a better way to look at this.
What would Elphaba do?
So let's start. I feel like there's really kind of 4 characters that we're looking at today.
Okay.
All right. Let's start with Glinda, right? Now, we're only looking at part 1.
Right.
We're not looking beyond that. We're not even looking at Wizard of Oz. We're just looking at what you saw. If she is kind of lumped in with Morrible and Oz, do you think, are you taking that case? Do you have a case, or do you think you're kind of screwed?
Oh, I'm taking that case, and I have some faith that I can do something with that. And it's because of developing the backstory.
Yeah.
This is a character that, as Linda, is so shallow, and and sings a whole song about being popular and has all the pink, and it's like it's like the beginning of the Barbie movie almost, and then as she continues, she gets deeper and arguably, changes her name to get deeper for shallow purposes to impress a boy. But you definitely have those scenes where you can see that she cares and loves Elphaba and wants good things for Elphaba. She's just going about it in a different way.
Yeah.
So if I had to defend her, I not only would I do it, and I would do it with compassion. I would be successful in separating her at this point.
Sure.
Separating her from the wizard and from Morrible. From what I've seen from the trailer and the little bit I remember from Pantages, that gets harder once we start part 2.
Okay, Professor Morrible. Now, one thing we didn't talk about, but we have talked about on other episodes, it's like people who are not cult leaders, but they're part of a cult, and they're kind of brainwashed, or they believe that, a lot of these things are genuine and earnest. Now, we can't know if she really feels that the wizard his intentions are good and he just needs help. It doesn't seem that way. She is very quick she is the one that does make the announcement, like, there is a wicked witch. But if you have her as your client, she is getting sued for defamation. She is probably getting lumped in on those animal cruelty charges. Are you donezo? Is there anything there?
It's hard to say because, again, we're intentionally pausing at the end of part 1.
Right.
And so if we only look at that part of the story, we don't understand her why yet.
Right.
Right? We don't understand what her motivation is, whether she's just wanting to set up an enemy to gain more power, or if she does have some sort of a reason. I can't imagine what that would be. So I think that looking at Morrible, it is what most people assume about criminals, right? There's no story behind it.
Right.
It is defamation. It is lying. It is bad. You are bad. You should be prosecuted, and that's that. So for me, I'm going to have a very, very different answer to this question after we're done with part 2, and we can add that to the analysis.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah, that one's tough because it's like, even if she is a part of this thing, we don't, I almost wonder if it's like, if I'm a prosecutor, do I really just kind of like offer her a deal because I really want the wizard? So let's talk about the wizard.
Let's talk about him.
He has defrauded the people of Oz. He is illegally experimenting. I would go further than experimenting on animals. He's violating them.
Yeah.
In essence, I don't know if it's murder, but he's killing their sentience. So in a way, it kind of is.
Yeah.
If he's caught, if there is a trial, like I'm asking you, but I'm kind of saying, like, I can't think of any way out of this. Could you know?
No, I can't. And even in The Wizard of Oz, going back to that, I mean, he's despicable.
But they frame it in such a way where you don't.
He's just kind of I lied to everybody and just happened to have a hot air balloon that just happened to come over, and sorry I couldn't pick you up and take you with me, but goodbye everybody.
And we never find
Peace
out in The Wizard of Oz, by the way, like why he wants the witch's broom. Like
because she's wicked.
Yeah, so I guess in that sense, it's just like, well, then why?
Yeah.
I've never thought about it.
Yeah.
I don't think you're supposed to think about it.
I don't think you're supposed to. You're definitely not supposed to think about it for Wizard of Oz. But there's 2 reasons why I'm going to say I'm not going to help the wizard.
Okay.
And this isn't just Doug's knee-jerk reaction that I do a lot of times, like with Jake. But that's a Freaky Friday reference in case you haven't seen every one of our episodes. But first of all, I think that the level of fraud that he has perpetrated on Oz, the level of lying, the level of manipulation, the level of he's spending all this time to try to find somebody to give him more power, and then he's wanting to get, all of the things that he does. It's just a magnitude that is just so terrible. And his motivation for doing it really seems to be to keep control, and that's about it.
Yeah.
Then you layer on top of the fact, can you imagine having that person as a client and trying to convince them to do something in a trial? I mean, he's very Goldblumed up.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very much Jeff Goldblum as the wizard.
Isn't
and
that
he's
perfect casting?
It's
by the
perfect
way?
casting.
Because
He's
you're
amazing.
You're so disarmed when you first see him.
He's like, it's Jeff
the
Goldblum.
heel turn.
Yeah.
It's that much harder.
And very much a similar character as the Grandmaster in
Thor Ragnarok.
in
I
Thor.
thought the same thing, but I think like they still play his evilness for laughs in Thor Ragnarok, whereas there's a very clear delineation between the fun, jovial Jeff Goldblum singing the sentimental song to like, oh no, this is when she's like,
he turns.
You have no power. He like,
turns.
That's why I need you.
Yeah.
When he says that's why I need you, that's when that Goldblum turns off.
Yes, agreed. And I would imagine that he would be an absolute nightmare to control as a client.
Yeah,
and so, if we're doing a jury trial, if I'm doing anything, he's going to think that he can charm his way out of whatever better than I can, and he's just going to be an impossible client. Yeah. So besides the fact that horrible, 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 awful, fraud, liar, fraud, horrible, there's also uncontrollable client to the mix. So there's not an amount of money you could pay me to represent him.
Lastly, let's talk about Elphaba. I guess you could get her on destruction of property, but really as she's kind of banging up his castle on her way out, but really all the charges...
Grand Theft Balloon,
sure. But really all the charges against her are fake,
right? It's escape, right? And so they're trying to capture her, and so there's a defense for her
resisting, I guess,
maybe resisting arrest. I guess
arguably all the like concrete charges seem very flimsy, right?
Right, exactly.
But I guess you're really like, do you think, as the attorney that you are, could undo the reputation, the court of public opinion? You know?
It's hard when you have that level of witch hunt, literally, right, going on. There's a reason why we call it that, and especially looking at the beginning of the movie with all the posters everywhere, and how the entire land is convinced. I love the challenge though, and I love the challenge of doing what Glinda did, which is what we watch as part one, which is explaining the story, explaining the friends. While it would be really hard to find an impartial jury, I like the idea of doing this explanation for her backstory.
You'd have to like go out of Oz for most of these.
Yeah.
I've never read an Oz book, so I don't know what's outside of
Oz.
I
understand that there are other places outside of Oz and around Oz and things like that. But yes, if this was Los Angeles, we would be looking for a change of venue because the publicity was so vast.
We said it a couple times in this episode, but I'm glad that we delivered on this. Really was the perfect blend of silly and real.
Yeah.
Which I think is the whole point of our show.
Yeah, I agree.
If you liked this, there's a whole lot more episodes right here in our YouTube channel. If you're getting ready for Thanksgiving and you need to cook your turkey and everything, you don't have time to watch, just throw in some earbuds and you can listen to us on Spotify, Apple, all those other things. I don't know about you, but I'm getting my tickets. I got to see part 2 now.
I got to see part 2.
I think maybe not a full episode, but we should definitely do a follow-up chat.
Yeah, I agree.
After we see Wicked for Good and just kind of see where we land on a lot of these things.
Yeah.
So instead of saying that's the end, I'm going to say to be continued.
To be continued.
We will see you guys next week.